Guess what,
Jesus.
everybody? It's the Disrupt Education Podcast. We're back.
Yes.
Allie Dahl, Peter Hostrasser. What's happening, Allie? How you doing?
Um, well, we were just talking about this, so might as well
Yeah,
bring it
right.
in.
We'll just roll right into
And
it.
Sandra Adams, our podcast guest last week, was like, "I'm super competitive." I'm like, "I'm super competitive," and I I don't know that I've shared like a volley that I was a big volleyball player in high school.
Hmm.
Uh, I could have played in college if I hadn't torn my rotator cuff.
Hmm.
But I mean, like I've always played, but not like at the top level since high school. But yeah, I'm still super competitive. I'm in this like rec league this fall, and we should win. We should win. And by the time this comes out, I'll you can message me and ask, did you win that rec league? I can
Right?
tell you. And I really don't want to lose the game tomorrow. So that's what's
Yeah, there we go. Well, best of luck to you on that. That's awesome. Our previous guest, man, talk about Sandy, man. Like, what did you take from that last episode last week? And if you haven't heard it, you gotta listen to it. It was incredible.
it's a must listen. Like I didn't I was so enthralled by the conversation that I didn't even say like we need to have you back on because I was thinking it, but every I was just like so captivated. Her stories are phenomenal. Like this year we're really trying to like just as Mark Essex kicked off the year like set like fire to disruption and
Hmm.
just like whatever that light you need to do that. And Sandra is 100% a powerhouse doing that work. I mean, just but what I loved about her story is that it started where anybody can start with one class, one yes from an administrator, and the passion to connect students in a software class to
Hmm.
businesses. And like her program, I don't know that we've talked to somebody with such an expansive program and like growing it. If you have a yes person like her on your team, like I just felt like anything was possible listening to her.
Yeah.
Anything was possible. That's who I want to work with in education. If we have like that kind of energy, I mean, I just feel like disrupting education is so possible. It's the right time. Like I love this idea that we can just set fire to educators and get them elevated and it is possible. Please listen to that episode because
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
there's so many nuggets.
There are so many different eras. She kind of we come from the same era of entering the teaching profession, which is interesting because she waited about 7 years. I waited like 3 or 4 years, maybe five, I don't know, to kind of get into the education world. And part of it was that it was because it was difficult, especially for like a business and or I think she was a history teacher, social studies kind of consultant who came in on the econ side. Um, it's hard. It was hard. Like you couldn't find jobs as educators, and now that's flipped on its head. It's some of the like if you're able to connect your academics with an experience that is real, you are highly sought after right now. And I just kind of want to tell our listeners that um, because that wasn't the case, Allie, when we came into the world of education. It was highly competitive. You had to know somebody, which is okay. I mean, that's just the way it was. But now there's so many opportunities, which I think is a piece of that propane that you want to light on fire of you as an educator wanting to try something new. If you want to try something new and the people or the blockers are too much in the system that you're in at right now, do it anyway because it's probably a good idea that if it's going to help students grow and experience things and really connect community and education together and then build your portfolio. I mean, that's really what we were talking about, I legitimately just saw 2017, this blog, and I posted it on LinkedIn. I'm sure I scheduled it somewhere because I schedule a lot of things on my social media, but it was legitimately saying, why do we not have these opportunities? And the school I was at was just not ready yet, and that's fine.
Right.
Over the last 7 years, I can't believe I'm in this place that I'm at, where we're building, we're presenting to the nation and all these different things. This does not come easy though. And I think that, with fire, there's heat and there's a little bit of burn in there. But if you expect that and you're ready to get your feet dirty and jump in, your hands dirty, um, I think this is the excellent, like that was an excellent conversation with Sandy. And this series is where it's at. I just love it. Man, I don't know. I'm excited now.
It was. I mean, it's so encouraging. And, I wasn't at when I started in education, it wasn't as competitive. Like I didn't have
Mhm.
to wait years, but I did have competition. Now I was applying for probably one of the quote unquote easier positions to get because teaching high school chemistry and physics, there aren't a lot of people that want to do it.
Right.
However, I can remember going to the job fairs and saying for an elementary school teacher position at the good school districts, you're looking at no less than 200 applicants for
Hmm.
one job.
Hmm.
That was when I started. By the time I left 10 years later, it was very difficult. I mean, it was like for good schools to get candidates. If at the beginning of the hiring season, it would be fine. They'd have enough. But it
Hmm.
wasn't hundreds and hundreds. Like the pool was getting exponentially smaller. I know in the science field and everything, the pool is sometimes so small, they are literally like asking around. There's all these posts like, do you know anyone who could
Right.
teach within 100-mile radius? I
Hmm.
mean, like,
Hmm.
and these are good school districts.
Right.
I can't imagine being in an urban, a rural, I know that those school districts have to get creative in some ways. So when Sandra is talking about like everyone should be disrupting the economy is on your side, like also the job like market is on your side. I think what would be appealing to young people or younger people or even people thinking about going into teaching now is a non-traditional system,
Yeah.
right? So like
Yeah.
if you're even listening to this and you have the power to like start a new program or something that's different and like partnering, one, their companies are looking for help
You're right.
and schools are looking for help. So like how can the help overlap?
Yeah. I feel we're gonna start to see a lot more positioning that way, whether, I know like hospitals do it right now where they work with recruiting and outreach for pipeline, and there is some education kind of wrapped into that, and it's a position because obviously in the medical field, I mean, there's a lot of gaps. And when I say medical field, a lot of people go right to doctor. I mean, there's so much more. I mean, there's IT people, admin, there's nursing, there's all these different areas of the medical world. And there are people who are actually working with school districts in their position. So they're kind of hired by both sometimes. Sometimes they're hired by the big organization, aka the hospital in this case, where they do work very closely with the school. The couple of things that Sandy said that I really liked was, and she is an administrator at the Career Academy in Fort Wayne Community Schools, is she said two things, change. Do you like change? Right? A lot of us didn't like, the reason I got into education was because I didn't like education. It sounds weird, and you're like, I'm going to stay away from it. But if you really like have like a passion for changing things and really to be creative, actually teaching is becoming that space, especially when it comes to CTE, tech ed, different ways that you can break down, if you're looking at secondary, education. How do you break down things? You know, if you remember when you were a student, what did you hate about school? And what did you like about school? And what did you like about school? You grow it up. If what did you not like about school? Then how do you actually create a better environment for students? And I'm like that. Listen, Allie, you and I know this, but our listeners may not know this. The I mean, the fences are down. Like we're talking 4 day work weeks. We're talking about like very like different school days. We're talking about hybrid learning. We're talking about, all these different areas that learning is now becoming capable of being, and not just the bell system that is 7, 8 bells a day for, 180 days a year or whatever. It's just not sustainable from an employer standpoint because there's so many other things. But there's also like our education, the way we are learning in how we're using technology and AI is changing as well. It's an exciting time to be kind of in that change. And I've said this for years, but I it's a playground right now. It really is because so many people are looking for answers and there's so much change going on. And I think Sandy just set us up with so many awesome stories that she has seen these things happen. The signing days, if you're not taking risks, it was just so many different things that was exciting about education that I'm really happy that I'm in it. I don't know.
I know, like I was beaming. I'm not in a classroom day to day, and and you are doing a lot of
Mhm.
other things in your role, but you're still working with students. And I mean, I loved like I gave her a little pushback on like, this is what teachers will say. They'll say like, but we have to teach it this way because this is how people learn. And, we need to do this comprehensive content and the vocabulary and all this stuff. And, she really broke it down that, and I remember experimenting in my own classroom with this idea of not front loading students and having them construct meaning on their own. And I know that I personally, when I was in an interview for the school district that I ended up teaching at, I got this question. It was like, how would you redesign this very traditional lab in chemistry? And for those who, have a science background, you probably remember single and double replacement reactions. And if
Mhm.
you don't, like it's okay, but it's a common type of reaction that gets taught. And it was so interesting because when I first started teaching, I didn't like the little tricks that were taught. It didn't have any meaning to students. So I had actually already reinvented this lab with another teacher. We had basically done this work. So I mean, like it was just like, here is a silver platter question for me to like ace this interview. But it was because I was already thinking about like, how do students construct meaning out of this? And I had to just let them literally fail at figuring it out, but they had to try stuff and until they saw the pattern,
Right.
until they gave meaning to it. And the more I did that in my classroom, the better students were. And it wasn't front loading stuff.
Yeah.
It was giving them the resources to then construct meaning. So I find it super relevant right now. And Mark Essex talked about how every student in America now has the teacher's edition version of the book,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
They all have it. That doesn't mean they have meaning from it. And so
Right.
you can throw students like, I mean, right? Like if I was in the classroom now, the next level of that would be, okay, putting these students, like a water treatment facility with somebody who is testing stuff, and they are doing those types of reactions in their testing. And if they didn't understand what that was, well, then you can come back and circle to it, and then they will make meaning out of it. They don't even need the like, you know, uh, it was fictional in a sense lab that
Hmm.
allowed them to understand this idea in chemistry, but it really didn't go anywhere else. Like unless there was some industry or something outside of the classroom, it's like, okay, cool, I know how to do this, but the next step is like, where is this done?
Yeah.
Where can we put them so that they can just literally have to have an industry level, expert level conversation about this? They may not understand what they're doing, and then they come back and they're like, I need to understand what a decomposition reaction is, or what a single replacement reaction is, or an acid base reaction is, because the person I was just talking to at the water treatment facility was mentioning that these are things that they test for.
Yep. I and you just throw the same concept into almost everything that you do, right? It doesn't matter where, like, what what area of study you're in. You put people in an experience and just let them go and let them like creatively try it, and whatever happens, happens. It was Eric Thomas. I just read. It was on one of his posts. He's a hip hop preacher, awesome dude. Who basically is like the three lines I think the teachers should be telling, or supporters, mentors, or anybody who's supporting somebody who's learning something is this: this won't break you. I believe in you. I'm here to help you move forward, right? So
Mm.
if somebody has that mentality as they're going into something, and you give them permission to play with something and fail, and it's another thing Sandy said, like, I want to measure how many failures you had. I don't care about like how great it was. If you are actually in my mind, like we do self-reflections, right? If you give yourself exemplary all the way down the line, I want you to do more, right? Like, then what's next? Because you're done with that. That's too easy. So,
Mm-hmm.
so what's going to challenge you to where you're going to be kind of in the moderate, okay, I'm not all the way there. And other also, like if you're way down and you don't know like any of the what to do, all right, well then let's figure out step one. That's it, right? So if you put these situations, in our case, it's career pieces, right? As I mentioned, the one student who was working on the marketing piece, but he was working for a finance company and he had no idea. He's like, I learned so much. I don't want to go into finance, but I had to learn about it. So da da da. I'm like, you just did a real thing there, right? Like, I didn't tell you you had to do that. No one front end loaded you on anything. Like, you had to go find it. And I think that's what a lot of the things that we're talking about here is putting kids back against the wall, let them struggle. And look, if they quit a couple days, just know that you're there for them. Create that environment and continue, because it will catch on. You may have to have a few individual conversations. I've done it in internship course. Like we've had students come back and it's just like, I want to quit, and we'd unpack it. And once we unpacked it, we figured out it's not that they want to quit. It's just they don't feel confident in their problem solving skills or what they had to do to improve the situation, or they just needed to talk to somebody about it, right? And that's learning, right? And every one of our students have learned from their experiences, and that's experiences is what we're talking about here. And you can do that. Like, think about, I think as an educator, wherever you are starting, the number one thing you need to really try to figure out is what's and how can you get students to experience your learning wherever that learning is. Grab one unit, grab one assignment, try to connect it with community of why they're learning it. Find one person to come in, give them a challenge, and get out of the way. And if it messes up, learn from it. And I think that's the message, one of the messages that I got from Sandy as well.
I love that. And it's reminding me, this is just a mindset piece. So I have found over the years that when I'm tutoring or teaching in any kind, even when I go and sub in the classroom, that a lot more of my role is mindset work and showing students like possibilities of what they already know and then like how to move forward, which is a
Right.
lot of what, if you listen to Sandra's story, it is literally just like starting and giving people permission to grow and like in all of this. So I love this particular author. His name's Eric Barker, and he has like a book like Barking Up the Wrong Tree and
Hmm.
another one. But I subscribe to his newsletter, and every week he has some he's a little sarcastic and whatnot, but he reads books and then he summarizes them for you, pulls out the nuggets. Um, and recently, one of his articles was like 4 ways to make yourself smarter, okay, or like just to be smarter. And the interesting piece in it was there was a study done where uh, these two groups, one was instructed on a problem, and it was like, this is the way to solve this problem. And then they were given new problems, and there was like a pre and post, obviously, assessment of how they solved the problem. And then the second group was told, this is one way to solve this problem. The way versus one way. That was the only difference. And the ones that were told this is one way to solve this problem did 50% better than just changing that one word.
Mm.
And when I thought about that with what Sandra was talking about and like just being a teacher in the classroom, what if you just changed how when you were teaching something, this is a way to do it. What other ones could you think of or could you bring to the table? It's just such an expansive way to disrupt, I feel like. And it's sometimes in our language, right? Like we can get in our own way with our language. And, you know, if you listen to Sandra's episode, I think what you're going to hear is really encouraging, powerful language
Yeah.
around everything that she's doing. It's expansive. There is more than one way. It isn't the way, it's
Right.
a way. And I just found that particularly encouraging when you're trying to disrupt education. We bring on guests. It's so funny. I was just over the holidays when I was talking to my family, and they're like, you know, well, what does disrupt education mean? Now they're starting to get more interested in the podcast. I hear you, fam. Okay. They're like, but like, what is the way to disrupt education? I said, there isn't the way. There
Mhm.
isn't, there are so many ways.
Right.
And they're like, we talk and cover so many different ways to disrupt education that you just need to start with one way and watch it grow. And I just think that that is kind of like it was my final thoughts before you asked for them, I guess. But just that piece of that Sandra, it's kind of like the undertone of her podcast
Right.
episode that you may not have pulled out, but like, the more we interview guests and listen to their stories and listen to, it's like their energy, it's
Right.
palpable. And we have amazing guests every week, but sometimes it's just like you just get, oh, this is a different frequency we're on this week.
Right.
Sandra is a different frequency in a phenomenal way that, the work that she's doing, it's so attainable for anybody and the mindset is there. And so if you need to get your mindset right, we have more mindset episodes. And if you feel like, oh, my students need mindset, and just changing a couple words can really make a big difference, I think.
I like that. And I think I'm going to round out kind of adding to what you were bringing up there is, you know, the things I told students as they were unpacking their first semester reflections on their 30 or 60 hours of work that they did, which, you know, they have to have the mindset, and they do by that time, not to just check the box and say, okay, well, I worked here, right? Kind of go deep into it. What were your feels of it? What went well? What didn't go well? And then when we unpack that, we usually unpack that with the employer and the student and myself, or my counterpart, Brett Thompson. And most students will sit there and they have great conversations, but they don't have the pencil and paper, right? And I'm not advocating you have to write down everything, but I will say if you want the most out of this podcast or these podcasts, is take one or two notes that are like, that's what I got from this one. Tell you what, in across the year, when we do 52 of these, you're going to have at least a couple pages of solid, workable stuff that you have picked up, that you have taken, you can take with you. And your 9 students, as Sandy puts it, will turn into 362 more efficiently than you think. But it's all about like, okay, so let me take some notes and those different things as you're going forward. I mean, we have more coming up. We have some different people in a lot of different areas. We have events, some of the similar names maybe, but we also have people who are in those rural areas or are in those areas that people would deem inequitable and doing equitable things to close gaps. So I'm super excited about where we are going. This, by the way, was all Allie's idea. She is awesome. Yes, I'm giving you props on this.
My idea.
Yes. So I think I'm gonna like she said they're Sandyisms. I think this is an Allie Dollism. So I'm gonna just go ahead and put that out there. But it is really cool to work with people and to hear people. And please reach out to these people. Reach out to us. I mean, we have a lot of connections. We continue to grow. This is a breakout year. This is it's a breakout year for us, and we're excited to be here and to take suggestions and such. Trying to keep up with all the emails that I'm getting, but you can follow us on LinkedIn. You hit Disrupt Education on LinkedIn, and we'll be there as well. Or Allie Dahl, Peter Hostrasser. We're out there on LinkedIn as well. You can take a look at our connects below. We're going to continue. There's going to be more. If you didn't have your pencil and paper ready, you just rewind this thing. And well, people don't rewind anymore. You just click back and
That's true.
go back through it or write a few things that you got. But we encourage you to hang out. This series is going to be great. So for Allie Dahl, I am Peter Hostrasser. We will see you next week on the Disrupt Education podcast. Have a good one. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Disrupt Education podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Are you ready to disrupt the educational arena you're a part of? For more ways to get involved in the work we do here at Disrupt Education, check us out at disrupteducation.co or find us on LinkedIn at Peter Hostrasser or Allie Privet.
Our mission here is to help facilitate and amplify changes in the educational system through local initiatives and help you scale them into community movements. Our building network of disruptors in education are working to move beyond scores and grades as the only measure for student learning. If your school district, college, campus, or organization is looking for facilitators of this work, reach out on our website or social media.
And if you have any thoughts or feedback on this week's episode or any episode, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries, taking risks, and most importantly, disrupting education.